What if the galaxy sent us a message? Not a greeting, not a warning, a demonstration, a broadcast of how they've crushed 3,847 civilizations, how they erased planets in hours. But instead of panic, we took notes. Instead of surrender, we built weapons. Instead of hiding, we said 2 words no species had ever dared to say: thank you. This is a story of how humanity turned fear into firepower and used the enemy's own playbook to burn their empire to the ground. Before we dive into the battle that changed the galaxy forever, make sure to subscribe if you love stories where humanity doesn't just survive, it outsmarts the impossible. Hit like if you're ready to witness a war where knowledge becomes the deadliest weapon. And share this with someone who believes intelligence is more powerful than intimidation. Now, let's begin. The emergency klaxons began screaming at precisely 3:47 Greenwich Mean Time. Commander Elias Rourke's boots thundered across the polished corridors of the Dominion Defense Nexus, hidden deep inside the armor heart of Iron Spire Mountain. Not since the solar crisis had this bunker pulsed with such chaos. Scarlet warning strobes painted steel doors in bursts of dread as Rourke powered through each sealed checkpoint like a human missile. Was a meteor swarm? A nuclear detonation? Or, God forbid, contact? As he burst into command ops, General Vexler didn't bother with greetings. "It's not peaceful," he said grimly. Rourke's eyes locked onto the massive hollow wall. It was devastation, pure, deliberate annihilation. Alien cruisers moved with surgical precision, cleaving entire continents with blinding ribbons of plasma. The footage shifted. Another planet. This one shredded from orbit by kinetic warheads. Then another. Then another. How long has this been happening? Rourke asked, already building timelines in his mind. 3 hours, Vexler answered. They've hijacked every satellite, every channel, every... Wait, Rourke snapped, holding up a hand. He stepped closer to display as a Titanic warship released its main cannon. Amid the superheated bloom, something caught his eye, a glitch? No, a rhythm. Can you replay that last sequence? Commander, we're watching entire civilizations burn. Exactly, Rourke cut in. And that's why we need to look closer. He tapped his tablet, sinking it to display. Here, watch the discharge pattern. The main weapon fired again. Rourke began counting aloud, breath steady, fingers tapping in time. A memory surfaced. His grandmother in war-torn soul, whispering to him as a boy about how she mapped the rhythm of enemy patrols to survive. Different war. Same trick. 17 seconds, Rourke declared. Their main guns need exactly 17 seconds to recharge. Silence. Only the haunting sound of worlds being erased filled the room. I need a tactical unit and an astrophysicist who isn't curled up in a corner, he barked. We just got a golden ticket. Every move they make is being broadcast in high definition. Far beyond Earth, aboard the Sovereign Reaper Vermidictus, Supreme Strategist Zalthor studied humanity's reaction with cold intrigue. His 6 ocular stalks independently tracked the chaos rippling across Earth's electromagnetic spectrum. So much fear, he mused, for such an unsophisticated world. At his side, Analyst Scribe Cranch bowed with respect. Their network screamed of confusion and despair. Then the rite may begin, Zalthor's voice sac pulsed with finality. As one, the bridge crew rose. A hivim filled the chamber, a chorus older than empires. It was a sacred chant of closure, of inevitable dominance. 3,847 civilizations received our omen, Cranch recited. Every single one either bowed within a single rotation or was turned to ash. Fragments of shattered moons drift silently as the victory rite begins. Another conquest etched into the stars. Combat profile? Sovereign Phalar asked, more out of ritual than curiosity. He already knew the answer would be borderline comedic. Tactician Zarn manipulated the holographic grid. Primitive propulsion. Chemical-based thrusters for orbit. Projectile-based weaponry. Fission bombs, sparse and inefficient. They haven't even cracked self-sustaining fusion, Zarn added. antennae flicking in amusement. Reaction time aligns with what we've seen from comparable species. He did a quick neural computation. 3 cycles, perhaps 5 if they try to negotiate instead of kneel. Felinar's feeding mandibles twitched in what his kind would call a chuckle. Plot our arrival vector. Standard spread formation. We'll be feasting long before the moon's turn again. The inevitable creed pivoted with silent majesty, its destroyers sliding into lockstep like cogs in a celestial machine. For millennia of warfare had perfected this dance, precision without variance. And in all that time, not once had a second warning been needed. 6 hours after Earth's first horrifying glimpse of the enemy, the makeshift command hub formerly known as Conference Room 7 had become a pressure cooker of panic and strategy. Around the oval table, Earth's top brass sat with expressions ranging from paralyzed shock to clenched rage. Colonel Rourke stood before them, his face lit by flickering displays. On the screen, frame 1847, a high-speed clip of an alien vessel diving through atmosphere. "Observe this zone," he said, using a laser pen to encircle the craft. "Shield distortion, right here. The energy field pulses in a rhythmic cycle. See these breaks?" Major Travis Mickelson, arms crossed near the back, translated for the room in his slow southern baritone. "What the colonel means is, those shields drop their guard like a boxer pulling back between punches. There's a pattern." Frame 2293. Rourke tapped forward. The footage shifted to boots on the ground, though boots barely described the 6-legged horrors in armored exosuits. They swept into what looked like a ruined school. Note their movement. Every time they breach a room, they veer left, Rourke continued, consistently. Their armor has a visual dead zone on the right. Exploitable. Admiral Surrey broke her silence. "Colonel, we're witnessing the extermination of entire civilizations. And you're taking notes?" Rourke turned to her, unwavering. "I'm taking notes because we're watching exterminations, and I plan to make sure we're not next." He clicked to the next slide, an industrial output graph. Every species they destroyed, centralized manufacturing, pre-fusion, small-scale capacity. He brought up Earth's profile. Now look at us, factories on every continent, 68 nations with their own arms industries. We breathe redundancy. Paranoia isn't a bug of our species. It's a design feature. He turned to face the room, voice gaining weight. They've never encountered a species that can forge 1,000,000 rifles in 30 days, or repurpose auto plants into armor lines overnight. Suddenly, a voice crackled from the secure link, measured, commanding. "How long do you need?" asked the president. Rourke didn't hesitate. He'd already run the math. To retool production, train the crews, and construct combat-capable fleets? He looked directly into the camera feed. 6 months minimum, Madam President. 8 would be ideal. His eyes flicked back to the star map. Because out there, the storm was already coming. They'll be here in 4. Silence didn't last long. The room fractured into noise, voices clashing over each other in a storm of panic. Proposals flew. Nuclear retaliation, last-ditch diplomacy, even global evacuation. Every idea was desperate. Every plan a fantasy. They all knew couldn't be done in time. Rourke let the chaos swell for exactly 30 seconds. Then he slammed his tablet onto the table, like a judge passing sentence. "We got 4 months, he growled, to build a war machine designed for one purpose, to fight a single enemy. An enemy that just handed us their playbook." He tapped once. The last slide filled the wall with satellite feeds. Factory districts glowing under floodlights. Assembly lines awakening like metal serpents. They think this was a warning? No, this was a tutorial. And we've been taking notes. Sunset painted the desert in bruised orange as Dr. Yuri Volkov's sputtering relic of a car wheezed into the base's restricted lot, coughing smoke as it settled between 2 identical black SUVs. The physicist stepped out, rumpled and unshaven, having driven nonstop from Los Alamos since the moment Rourke called. At the gate, a young officer stood waiting. "Dr. Volkov, Colonel Rourke's expecting you." "We'll see if he regrets it," Volkov muttered, lighting a cigarette beneath the NO's smoking sign. "Though I should warn you, my specialty is building weapons we're not allowed to use, not ones for fighting aliens." Inside, the expanded facility thrummed with urgency. Hangars once used for flight tests had been gutted and reborn, their new title coined in a moment of dark creativity and fast-tracked by the Pentagon, Xenological Warfare Division. In Hangar 2, towering screens cycled through footage. Alien ships turning cities into glass, continents to ash. "Colonel Rourke," Volkov greeted with a stained smile, extending a hand that smelled of fuel and nicotine. "Starting the apocalypse without me?" Rourke gestured toward the looping feed. "Tell me what you see." Volkov squinted. A column of plasma incinerated a metropolis. He leaned closer, rewound, again and again. On the seventh viewing, he laughed, low and sharp, a sound that drew side eyes from nearby engineers. "Idiots," he muttered, stepping closer to the screen and scribbling directly on it with a stolen marker. "Magnetic bottle tech. Look, helical confinement rings. They're using reverse tokamak dynamics." Rourke narrowed his eyes. "Can we interrupt it?" "Interrupt it?" Volkov grinned like a man who just found a fuse. "We can make their cannons detonate in their own faces." In moments, he'd commandeered a whiteboard. Symbols flowed in Cyrillic, each calculation annotated with feverish energy. "Their plasma must stay within precise magnetic frequencies to remain stable," he explained, scribbling arrows and waveforms. "Disrupt that balance." He drew a jagged explosion with a flourish. Boom! The weapon eats itself. Rourke stepped closer. "How do we disrupt it?" "We design ceramic composites, threaded with metallic nanogrid lattices. When the pulse hits the material," he snapped his fingers, "it collapses a field." Volkov yanked a welding torch from a startled technician. "Here, I demonstrate." Within minutes, he had assembled a crude prototype, ugly patchwork but functional. He ignited the torch, bathing the plate in white-hot plasma. Instead of melting, the flames scattered harmlessly into fractal light. Volkov stepped back, hands on hips, admiring the glow. "Now," he said, cigarette tucked behind his ear, "we make 1 billion of them." 3 weeks after their so-called warning, high strategist Failno skimmed the latest intelligence packets with something dangerously close to confusion. The usual symptoms were missing. No mass hysteria, no governments collapsing, no desperate emissaries begging for terms. He called for his analyst. "Zarn," he rasped, "explain these anomalies." The sub-commander's eye stalks twitched, a nervous tic among his kind. "Commander, the humans appear to be mobilizing." Failno leaned forward. "For Exodus?" Zarn hesitated. "No, Commander. For manufacturing." The war grid on the command dais bloomed to life. Streams of heat signatures, supply routes, factory activity. Every industrial complex on Earth now glowed with intensity. Foundries ran through the night. Soldiers trained through simulated kill zones. Orbital scaffolding circled their moon like scaffolds around a siege tower. Failno waved a primary limb. Reflexive behavior. False hope through construction. 17% of proto-militant species show this pattern. Terror makes them pretend to fight. "With all respect," Zarn said, "I believe this is more than that." He brought up additional footage. Human units weaving through faux hallways, mimicking exactly how council boarding teams cleared rooms. "They're drilling against our tactics," Zarn said, "down to our breach timings, our blind spots." Failno recoiled, disbelief stiffening his limbs. "How?" "They've had no direct engagement. They had the transmission," Zarn replied. 3 hours of live combat footage. Everything we showed them. Failno's vision sharpened. his species' equivalent of a narrow glare. But 4,000 years of successful exterminations were louder than a young analyst's warnings. "Continue observation," he said, tone final. "Alert me only when something real occurs." Zarn bowed and withdrew, but even as he walked away, he couldn't shake it. This species didn't follow the algorithm, and if patterns failed, so might the Council. 2 months after Earth's first brush with annihilation, Colonel Rourke stood amid a sea of noise, sweat, and raw purpose. The tank in front of him was a monster. Designation: M3A7 Council Reaper. The world's fastest developed battle platform. Its armor, jagged and functional, gleamed with Volkov's signature anti-plasma ceramic. The turret? A railgun calibrated to the micron, engineered to rip through council hull plating like aluminum foil. "She's a work of art," Mickelson murmured, running a hand along the chassis. Volkov puffed on a fresh cigarette. "That coating turns death into fireworks. Plasma hits, spreads, dissipates. Pretty but useless." Rourke nodded toward the cannon. "And the rail gun?" 12 times the speed of sound, Volkov said. "Ferrite core tungsten slugs. Based on their structural alloys, it'll carve through their ships like a hot knife through fog." Around them, the factory pulsed like a living organism. Crews worked triple shifts. Cots lined the break rooms. Coffee and adrenaline replaced sleep. And this wasn't isolated. Across the globe, the same symphony played. Chinese labs finalized warheads built to scramble magnetic fields. Brazilian shipyards launched patrol craft that hadn't existed 6 weeks ago. European engineers crafted powered armor tuned to the Council's blind spots. On his tablet, Rourke finished drafting Earth's first formal reply. He chose every word with surgical intent. "To the esteemed Galactic Council, Earth acknowledges receipt of your comprehensive tactical training materials. Your vivid demonstrations of battlefield strategies, weapons capabilities, and procedural doctrine have been invaluable to our defense development. We thank you for this remarkable gift of strategic insight. Sincerely, the United Earth Defense Coalition." "You're actually sending that?" Mickelson asked, peering over Rourke's shoulder. "They expect panic. Or posturing," Rourke said, pressing the transmit key. "So let's confuse the hell out of them." Fail No received Earth's reply during his sacred hour of victory reflection, a time reserved for reviewing the triumphs etched across the stars. The message appeared simple. Too simple. His translator AI choked, recalibrated, ran the sequence again. 5 different linguistic cores trying to make sense of the impossible. "They are expressing gratitude," the comms officer reported, its voice sacs vibrating in stunned dissonance. "For the warning?" Fail No demanded. "Yes, Fleet Commander." The recording looped, each playback confirming it. Earth had formally thanked the Council for demonstrating how to annihilate civilizations. "Summon the war table," Fail No growled, his certainty fracturing like brittle metal. Within moments, the Council's senior officers assembled. The message played on the command screen, each syllable a heresy against 4,000 years of psychological warfare. Interpretation? Fail No barked. Zarn stepped forward, tablet aglow. "Human industry has increased fourfold in under 60 days. Their weapon systems exhibit deliberate design choices to counter our arsenal. The war board ignited with new data. Hover tanks plated in plasma-dispersing ceramic. Strike aircraft engineered to exploit blind zones in Council fighter vision. Oceanic cruisers armed with rail cannons tuned precisely to our shield harmonics. They're not ignoring our tactics," Zarn said. "They're studying them. Every move we made, they've built a counter for it. They're using our own doctrine," he added, as if it were a blueprint. Thornell's voice sacs expanded with alarm. "No civilization adapts like this. It defies every model." "Then Earth," Zarn replied, "is the outlier." Fail No stared at the data. His flawless legacy of conquest trembled in silence. These weren't primitives reacting in fear. These were engineers turning trauma into tools. "Advance our timetable," he ordered. "Push the fleet. full thrust to their system. We must burn them before this defiance becomes contagious. But Fleet Commander, the NAV officer warned, full burn stresses the core drives. Protocol, I am the protocol. Fail null thundered. The command echoed through the armada. All weapons hot. Prepare for resistance. These creatures wish to challenge the council. He leaned forward. Then they will learn why we do not lose wars. Meanwhile, Earth's war nerve pulse in the command center once called a conference room. Now it was a living mind. Screens on every wall streamed global feeds. Real-time telemetry flowed in a digital torrent. The coffee maker hadn't stopped brewing in over 6 weeks. Update from Beijing. A text shouted, Factory 7 just rolled out its 1,000 magnetic disruption warhead. Tel Aviv confirmed successful trials of electronic interference suites. Another added, jamming efficiency, 90%. Council targeting systems disrupted. Rourke moved like current between terminals, reading, refining, redirecting. On his central monitor, a color-coded map showed humanity's metamorphosis. Green, defense outposts fully operational. Blue, factories converted to wartime infrastructure. Red, training hubs running full combat simulations using council scenarios. Mickelson entered, tablet in hand. You're going to want to see this. Rourke raised a brow. He held out the display. North and South Korea just announced joint military exercises. Well, the Galactic Council had done it. They accomplished in months what diplomats failed to do in a century. They finally unified the planet, Rourke said, allowing himself the faintest trace of a smile. Mickelson leaned in. What's their current strategy? Ambush, Rourke replied. They're dissecting the enemy's urban assault methods, rebuilding our cities into traps. It turned out humanity's chaotic street grids were a tactical goldmine. Council units, trained for structured layouts, always move in clean, predictable formations. The irony wasn't lost on Rourke. His grandmother had once evaded occupation forces by memorizing the schedules of their morning patrols. Now her lesson, use their order against them, was being applied to invaders from another galaxy. Sir, the comms officer called out, tension creeping into his voice. We detected a massive FTL signature. They're accelerating. Rourke's eyes narrowed. They're nervous. He turned to the console and slammed the general alert. This is command. Attention all stations. Council forces are inbound, ahead of schedule. I repeat, Council fleet arriving early. Assume battle positions. The command center burst into motion, controlled chaos blooming across the room. 60 days lost. That was 60 fewer, prepare. But also proof. Proof they'd spooked the unbeatable. Mickelson, Rourke barked. Activate Matador Protocol. He exhaled. Let's see if all that studying paid off. 3 months after contact. Underground Bunker 12, Nevada Desert. Dr. Volkov hadn't slept in 2 days. His bloodstream was now a cocktail of espresso, nicotine, government-sanctioned amphetamines, and the giddy thrill of outwitting the laws of physics. Before him sat a weapon that shouldn't exist. This is impossible, Rourke muttered, eyeing the warhead like it might sprout wings. Then I explained slowly. Volkov said, gesturing theatrically, pretend I am speaking to someone who failed high school physics. Yes, Rourke folded his arms. Go on. Their energy shields work on harmonics, vibrational frequencies. Yes? And from all that lovely battle footage, we learned each weapon leaves a unique resonance. He tapped the device affectionately. So, we generate a reverse harmonic. Cancel their frequency with ours. It doesn't just disable their shields, it flips them inside out. You're saying their defense becomes a bomb? Exactly. Volkov shouted. Their greatest strength becomes our biggest boom. Rourke eyed him. Are you sure this will work? Am I sure? No. But physics is physics, even for technical people. Volkov said, lighting a cigarette beneath a blinking radiation warning. In the blast chamber, a test target waited, replica council armor, modeled with precision from dozens of battle recordings. Volkov's prototype launched, a simple rocket with desperate science in its gut. The impact triggered a rupture. The observation bay trembled as the blast tore through shielding rated to survive nuclear hellfire. Dust and smoke flooded the chamber. When it cleared, there was nothing left of the target. Not debris, not shrapnel, only vapor. Volkov stared, whispered, then roared, "It works!" The shield magnified the explosion. "I am a genius." Rourke was already doing the math. "How fast can you build more?" Volkov's eyes gleamed. "With full-scale manufacturing, thousands will turn their precious armor into their grave." On board, the verdict descended. Zarn pored over his screens with growing dread. Earth's acceleration hadn't slowed. It had multiplied. His monitors showed human forces running drills that didn't just resist Council doctrine. They countered it with ruthless precision. "Fleet Commander," he said carefully, approaching Failno like a man approaching a sleeping dragon, "there are developments." "Speak," came the reply. "Human starships now feature countermeasures perfectly aligned to our weapons. Observe. Thermal sinks place exactly where our plasma strikes land. Penetration mapping reveals adaptive plating," Zarn said grimly. "Hull thickness adjusted at our known impact vectors." He tapped again. "Point defense systems now track at velocities calibrated to our fighter class top speeds." Every scan, every test, every feed said the same thing. These weren't broad-spectrum defenses. They were sniper-precise counters. "Commander," Zarn added, "their entire fleet is built, not generically but surgically, against us." He flipped to the next data cluster. "And it's not just the ships. Their infantry regiments mirror our exact shipboard layouts. Their boarding teams simulate breaching our door systems, assaulting structural choke points. Their pilots rehearse maneuvers designed to sever our lock-on cycles." "Show me," Failno ordered. The main display transformed. Footage from Earth's military exercises. Marines swept through mock starships, timing charges with surgical accuracy. Tank divisions drilled to strike during our 17-second reload intervals. Fighter squadrons spun through evasive arcs that turned our tracking into static. "They're not training for a war," Zarn said softly. "They're training to fight us. Only us." Failno's eye stalks, normally sweeping analytical, locked into parallel focus. A rare and visceral reaction among his kind. His feeding mandibles recoiled completely into his armored chest cavity, an ancient instinct. The posture of prey. "Double our burn velocity," he ordered. "Overdrive the cores if we must. They've taken our warning and forged it into weapons." His voice rose. "But let them build. Let them prepare. No race has ever survived full council fury." "Fleet Commander," another officer, Cretarn, spoke hesitantly. "Might we open negotiation?" Failno turned on him, voice booming. "We are the council. We do not parley with unranked life forms." The chamber trembled with his next command. "All units, prepare for immediate combat upon entry to the system. If they have countered our textbook maneuvers," he paused, "then we'll teach them the unwritten chapters of conquest." Yet beneath his roaring orders, a quiet fracture formed, one thought he could not extinguish. In 4,000 years, no civilization has ever responded with, "Thank you." What else might these humans do that no species ever dared? 1 month before the revised council arrival window. Luna orbit, shipyard ring Theta. Colonel Rourke floated above the framework of Earth's last word, the EDS Stalingrad, watching as it was welded together from the bones of survival. She wasn't beautiful. She wasn't elegant. She was a converted freighter with a jagged shell of welded plates, bristling with mismatched weapons and homemade death. And she was perfect, ugly as home-baked sin, Mickelson observed through comms. But she got murder in her eyes. Across the void, Earth's armada assembled. Cruise liners turned into mobile missile platforms. Mining rigs now house magnetic railguns. Freight runners bristled with sensor baffles and reactive plating. Every hull screamed one truth. We saw how you fight, and we designed to break it. A dock officer drifted into view. Stalingrad's prepped for shakedown, sir. Ready to stretch her claws. I'll fly her myself, Rourke replied. Time to see if she bites. The test run was breathtaking. Volkov's ceramic armor absorbed simulated plasma like rain on stone. The railguns, tested at impossible distances, skewered drone targets cleanly, laughing in the face of council doctrine. Point defense rigs tracked and eliminated targets, moving exactly at council approach speeds. Rourke turned toward the control deck. What's our count? 47 ships locked and loaded, came the reply. Another 30 in 2 weeks. Not enough. Nowhere near enough. But every vessel they had was a weapon carved from necessity, designed not for glory, but for murder. Each one, a bullet aimed at the heart of the council. Mickelson drifted beside Rourke at the viewport. The jagged constellation of Earth's makeshift fleet reflected in both their eyes. Remember the Alamo? He asked. 189 holding out against thousands. Rourke nodded. They were slaughtered. Yeah, Mickelson said. But they made Santa Ana bleed for every step, and Houston learned what not to do. He motioned toward the chaos of retrofitted hulls, missile tubes, jury-rigged armor. Maybe we won't survive, but we'll make sure the galaxy sees the council can bleed. Rourke nodded once. Upload combat footage to all emergency beacons, he ordered. If this is our end, we take their legend with us. Failno's fleet dropped from hyperspace like a wave of sharpened metal and planetary vengeance. Engines burning red, drive cores pushed beyond safety. 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Exhausted, abused, but still intact. Judgment had arrived. Status. Failno demanded. Multiple hostiles detected. His sensor officer replied, voice sacs flickering with confusion. But the approach vectors, he trailed off. What about them? They're council-designated safe corridors, locked in protocol for 4,000 years. No species should... The first detonation cut him off. Proximity mines, primitive in design, brutal in effect, ripped through the vanguard. Shields shimmered, failed, and died in a blossom of blinding color as Volkov's resonance warheads detonated in synchronized brilliance. The view screen became a wide-out flash. Purple halos burned into Failno's eyes. Reverse course, evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. From shadows carved into asteroids, human fighters erupted. Camouflage bays exploding open across the lunar belt. Launch tubes spat death like dragon fire. Railguns screamed, flinging solid metal at impossible speeds. Council shields, calibrated for plasma, couldn't track or react. The safe corridor had become a gauntlet of steel and nuclear fire. Return fire. Failno roared. All batteries, engage. But the enemy didn't fight like primitives. The fighters darted through their ranks with surgical precision, exploiting the same blind spots they had so proudly displayed in their footage. They knew the reload delays. They knew the shield recharge cycles. They knew everything, because the council had shown them. Fleet Commander, Zarn said from the command dais. This ambush is not random. It was built to counter our exact formation. They knew our exit coordinates. They studied our standard doctrine. Thornhill watched another of his ships vanish in a flash of self-detonated shields, turned against itself by physics the humans had no right to understand. His legacy, his invincibility, fractured. Full assault, he bellowed, casting protocol to the stars. Advance! Show them the price of rebellion. The Battle of Luna had begun. Rourke stood amid the war room chaos, watching red markers vanish on the screen one after another. The ambush had gone beyond expectation. 7 council vessels crippled or destroyed in under 90 seconds. But now came the real war. They're switching formation, a technician called out. Looks like Apex pattern, same as the Heptagon offensive footage. Of course they are, Rourke muttered. With a flick, he activated the preloaded attack tree. Matador Protocol. Engage. All units. Fire at will. Hidden silos hissed open like scars ripping into the moon's surface. Dozens of missile arrays rose from disguised craters, locking in on a pattern the humans knew by heart. The Apex Formation. They'd studied it from Council victories. Watched how it crushed the Heptagon Union. Then they'd torn it apart. Now, they knew every sense of blind zone that maneuver created. Volkov's warhead streaked through those gaps like truth-seeking lies. And for the first time in 4,000 years, Council ships burned. The EDS Stalingrad led the charge, her jagged armor deflecting plasma like she was forged from defiance itself. Her railgun spat molten death, punching holes through holes that had never been breached before. "Sir, Mitchell's unit has infiltrated a destroyer," a comms officer called. Rourke switched to the live feed. Helmet cam footage flickered to life. Mitchell's Marines flowed like mercury to the alien corridors, placing charges exactly where Council schematics had once been proudly shared as warnings. Corner by corner, door by door. Each breach mirrored the very tactics the Council had once used to exterminate others. "Charges primed," Mitchell reported. "We're pulling out now." 12 minutes after boarding, the alien destroyer erupted from the inside, its heart chain reacting through systems no enemy was ever supposed to understand. Faster than Council commandos could even coordinate. "My God," someone whispered. "We're actually winning." "No," Rourke said flatly. "We're enduring. There's a difference." And the displays didn't lie. Every alien ship they downed cost them 3 of their own. Heroes died every second. The skies bled wreckage. But something was different. Council movements faltered. Orders came slower. Formations shifted with less confidence. Fear had entered the equation. Aboard the inevitable truth. Fail-No stared at the battlefield. His perfect, invincible fleet, carved from centuries of precision, was unraveling. "Fleet Commander!" Zarn's voice cracked. Something foreign lived inside it. Panic. 3 more ships have been boarded. They're using our breach doctrines in reverse. It's surgical, Commander. They know exactly where to strike. The tactical board confirmed it. Fires bloomed from inside flagship hulls. Enemy fighters turned Council blind spots into choke points. Human capital ships fired weapons designed to flip Council strengths into liabilities. And then Fail-No saw it. Really saw it. They weren't just fighting. They were broadcasting. Across every frequency, Earth was live-streaming the fall of a god. The Council's wounds were now a galactic performance. "New contact," the sensor officer shouted. "Massive spike. It's the SAR disruptor. They've launched it." "SAR what?" Before he could finish, the weapon detonated. An artificial resonance pulse engineered to hijack the Council's own shield architecture. Not a nuke. Something worse. A quantum echo that bounced through the fleet, turning standard-issue defenses into suicide engines. Ships meant to be indestructible were now disemboweled by their own systems. Fire swallowed hulls. Weapons backfired. Energy loops collapsed into fusion cascades. "Fleet Commander!" Zarn's voice shook, tablet vibrating in his trembling hands. 30% casualties. Formation shattered. And the humans are still transmitting. Fail-No's eye stalk. Thornell's eye stalks twisted toward the updated casualty projections. Earth was bleeding, burning from the inside out. Entire cities erased. Ash in the wind. Millions gone. And still they fought. Every corpse became a footnote in a new playbook. Every crater? A lesson. "They learned," he muttered. "We showed them triumph, and they turned it into our funeral." Beneath layers of bedrock, in the reinforced command vault of Earth Defense HQ, Rourke sifted through a data feed soaked in blood. Numbers told a story. It was written in sacrifice. Beijing lost. London burning. 30 million dead, and the count still climbing. But humanity stood. "They're pulling back behind Luna," A tactical officer reported. Looks like they're regrouping. Rourke stared at the sensor map. They still outnumbered Earth's defenders 3-1. But something had changed. They're waiting, he said. They're doubting. Missile recovery status? He asked. 3 intact council birds captured, came the reply. Volkov's already inside one. He's giggling, sir. Says their engineering is beautiful, but idiotic. Rourke gave a rare smile. For months ago, Earth had been a fractured species clinging to a rock. Now they'd made the Galactic Council hesitate. At a brutal, soul-scarring cost. Sir, incoming message. Comms called out. From the flagship. Council's requesting dialogue. Put it through. The main screen lit up. Fail null appeared, posture tense. Alien features unreadable, but not his hesitation. Not his doubt. It dripped from him like cold oil. When he spoke, the translator reduced his grand voice to flat English. Humans, he said, you have exhibited unanticipated capacity. The Council acknowledges your ingenuity. Rourke kept his tone even. Commander Thornell, if our data's correct, thank you again for your transmission. That little demonstration, quite the teacher. Fail Null's eye stalks locked in stiff lines. You mocked the Council. No, Rourke replied. We're just grateful. Your footage taught us every angle, every flaw, every blind corridor. For 1,000 years of unchallenged warfare, he leaned forward, and you gave us the playbook. Silence. The Council does not. The entire galaxy is watching, Rourke cut in, gesturing toward the live feeds. And we've had some new friends request copies of our battle recordings. Turns out, they'd also love to learn how to kill you. Shock rippled through the bridge of the inevitable truth. Your sacred warning, Rourke continued, is now an open-source manual for resistance. A gift you gave everyone you threatened. He tapped the screen. And speaking of gifts, schematics fill the air. Armor compounds, resonance bombs, railgun math. Enjoy. Ceramic dispersion formulas, warhead configs, and counter-shield weapon tuning. Free for any civilization with a satellite and a grudge. Zarn stepped near Fail Null like a ghost, whispering, the human is right. All around, bridge officers sat rigid, still at their posts, but shaken. Our doctrine, Zarn said, has become our downfall. Every species will now demand access to the warning. Every species will find its cracks. Fail Null said nothing, not even as the truth crashed down. For 1,000 years of dominance, collapsed by a species that looked into the abyss and said thank you. The tactical screen glowed with the remains of Earth's defenders, scarred, scattered, but still afloat. Each battered ship, a middle finger pointed at a broken god. A single word, testament, lingered in Kron's mind as the battle waned. Humanity's survival wasn't a fluke. It was proof, a declaration in steel and blood that adaptation could outmatch tradition. Below, Earth still smoldered, cities lost, skies scorched, but endured. And across the stars, encrypted signals rode hidden channels, carrying scenes of Council ships erupting into flame. Options, Thornell said. He already knew them. Press on, Kron replied, though his voice betrayed hesitation. We outgun them. Victory remains possible. A pause. But each casualty is another broadcast. Another weakness exposed. Whether we win or lose, our myth dies. The second choice hung heavier. Retreat. Salvage what remains. Pretend we are still invincible, at least to those who haven't seen. It wasn't strategy. It was damage control. Either fight and risk obliteration on galactic stage, or run and abandon 4,000 years of untouchable supremacy. On the edge of the solar system, human ships advanced. They didn't hesitate. Their weapons glowed, but their intent blazed brighter. They knew they could win now. Each ship streamed its targeting data to the others in real time. Sensor harmony stitched together a single mind across dozens of vessels. Like wolves raised by lions, they'd learned teamwork from the Council itself. Fleet commander? Kron prompted. All around, ships burned. The prophecy, meant to sow terror, had become gospel to rebellion. The humans had read their own obituary and rewritten it as a war cry. Thornhill finally spoke. Signal the fleet. Strategic withdrawal. Immediate. His voice cracked under the weight of dead pride. The order raced outward. Engines, once engineered for triumph, now flared in panic, screaming toward the edge of Sol. But no human ships gave chase. They didn't need to. They had already won. Instead, they kept broadcasting, letting the stars watch the mighty Galactic Council run. As the sun dipped beyond the ruined horizon, Rourke stood on cracked concrete, what remained of Earth Defense Command's backup site. The primary bunker lay buried beneath Beijing's bones. Tactical displays shimmered above scorched walls, showing retreat vectors. Council warships abandoning systems, leaving behind twisted wreckage and shattered pride. Sir, the comms text voice broke with fatigue and awe. We're getting signals. Encrypted. Dozens. Everyone's asking for our battle records. Give them everything. Rourke said. Weapons. Patterns. Their shield math. All of it. The Council taught us how to fight them. Now we'll teach the galaxy. Mitchell stepped in, armor blackened, face hollow. 3 destroyers secured. Volkov's in surgery, but still smiling. He says we'll have alien-grade beam weapons inside a month. His voice caught. Casualties still rising. But we held. Rourke didn't speak for a moment. Instead, he stared at Earth's twisted map. Burning. Broken. But breathing. We'll rebuild, he murmured. The dead will carry. But now every species knows what we proved. The Council bleeds. He turned to the comms officer. Send one last message. He dictated slowly. To the Galactic Council. Thank you for teaching us how to kill you. We're passing the lesson along. Earth, 6 years later. The throne room of the Tok'n Empire, once a monument of fear, now serve a new purpose. A meeting place. A symbol of reclamation. The alliance of free worlds convened inside the captured dreadnought, its walls scarred but standing. 7 species sat at the table. Each had studied Earth's defiance. Each had used it to find courage in their own skin. Rourke stood at the head, addressing them all. He recalled how the high-born heptarchy had synchronized ambushes using neural links. How the cavalry used their natural stealth to turn corridors into ambush tunnels for raiding parties. The Sheltech didn't build warships. They mined asteroids. But after Luna, those drills and cutters, once designed to carve rock, were reborn as weapons. Funny, Rourke said, voice low but steady. The Council meant their warning to paralyze us, scare us into surrender. He gestured toward the wide display behind him. Dozens of stars blinked red and blue. Red for uprising, blue for freedom. Every week, the map changed. Every week, the Council shrank. But instead of fear, they gave us insight. They thought we'd see invincibility. Rourke continued. We saw weak points dressed up as strength. The gathered assembly, leaders of 7 species, watched as the screen cycled through recent victories. Each liberation had been televised. Each uprising sparked the next. Earth hadn't begun this revolution with force. It had begun it with perspective. Rourke pointed to them all. When they flexed, we studied. When they roared, we recorded. When they showed us how to die, we wrote a manual on how to kill them. Aboard the repurposed Earth dreadnought Stalingrad, one former emperor sat in silence. Stripped of command, Folknall now occupied a sterile cell, bare metal, simple bunk. The humans fed him, clothed him, treated him with mechanical dignity. And they brought videos. Always videos. Today's was the Pentari uprising. A species that bowed to the Council's heel for 300 years now marched through shattered garrisons. They wielded railguns fused with crystalline alloys. Their fighters moved like Mitchell squads, targeting the exact same angles Earth had exposed. Their victory aired across the stars. One more chapter in a growing legend. Major Mitchell stepped into the cell, tablet in hand. "You want to see this one," he said. "The Vera just used your own apex formation against your fleet." He smiled faintly. "Turns out if you know where the blind spots are." Folknall stared, unreadable. "Why show me this?" he finally asked. Mitchell shrugged, pulled up a chair, sat like he was in the room with a fallen tyrant. "Same reason y'all sent that warning in the first place," he said. "Education. You taught us that if you show someone their own funeral, it breaks their spirit." He leaned closer. "But if you show someone their flaws, it can collapse an empire." He stood. "Your warning made us what we are. Every free world today learned by watching Earth watch you." He paused at the door. "In a way, you're the father of this rebellion." Folknall remained alone, surrounded by silence and ghosts. For millennia of control, shattered, not by some new superweapon, but by something far simpler: transparency. The warning still echoed across the void, but now its message had changed. No longer a promise of inevitable conquest, but a whisper of hope. The footage of annihilation had become a blueprint for resistance. And it all began with a phrase no species had ever dared to say: "Thank you." A decade after first encounter, Rourke stood aboard the observation deck of a former enemy. Once it was the inevitable truth. Now it bore a new name: Remember Beijing. Outside, the scars of Earth were still visible. Ruins still dotted the planet. But cities had begun to rise again. Memorials lined the coastlines. Humanity had not only survived, it had evolved. The alliance of free worlds now spanned 30 systems, and counting, each member a beacon of rebellion, each one born from the lessons the Council never meant to share. Each new species brought their own brilliance, new tactics, new twists, new ways to fight back. And the balance of power, once immovable, had tilted. At the center of this galactic shift, a fragile blue world that refused to kneel. "Colonel," said a young officer, breaking Rourke's thoughts. "The Kafari are here. They're requesting access to the Titan siege footage." Rourke turned his gaze downward, to the Earth slowly rotating beneath the ship's observation dome. "Give them everything," he replied. "Every breakthrough, every brutal lesson. Knowledge should never be held hostage." On his desk sat a single plaque, "From Warning to Wisdom." Beneath it, framed in a sleek panel of anti-plasma ceramic, was a copy of the original message. 2 words seared into history: "Thank you." Volkov entered, as if summoned by memory itself. He held a bottle of vodka in one hand and a datapad in the other. "News and booze," he announced, grinning. "We've cracked their faster-than-light systems. The same resonance gap that ruins their guns." He tapped the screen. "It works on their engines, too." Rourke's eyebrow lifted. "You saying in 6 months," Volkov said, already pouring the drinks, "we'll have ships that move like theirs? No more slow crawl." He raised a glass. "Oh, and the latest council reports? They've pulled back to their core sectors. 15 species have officially broken ties. Their warning broadcasts discontinued. Dead protocol." Rourke picked up his glass, letting the weight of it settle in his palm. "They're learning to fear the ones they warned." To the Council, Volkov toasted, "For teaching us everything by accident, and for being dumb enough to do it loudly," Rourke added. They drank, not in triumph, but in recognition. Salvation had come not from weapons, but from humanity's strangest advantage: the ability to treat doom like a puzzle, to see fear as a challenge, to turn a warning into instruction. Far across the stars, the Council's empire withered. On 1,000 worlds, rebels studied Earth's transmissions. Every tactic, every trick, every trap, the warning once forged to ensure obedience, now served as a manual for rebellion. All because one species at the edge of extinction looked death in the eye and said thank you. Humanity stood on the edge of extinction and turned a death sentence into a revolution. If this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or hope, hit subscribe, because this is just one chapter of many. Like Share and comment your favorite moment. Or tell us, what would you do if Earth got that warning? Until next time, stay curious, stay defiant, and never stop learning from your enemies.